Let's get this wonderful show on the road, everybody. My name is Mark Milovanovic. I am the CTO of GoCloud Careers. I'm joined by our founder and CEO, Michael Gibbs, as well as our distinguished speaker, thought leader in the AI and cloud space, Mr. David Linthicum. We welcome everybody warmly that you had the opportunity to join us. Before we go into the presentation aspect of this webinar, where you'll get a little bit more information in regarding to what is artificial intelligence, what is the generative AI course about, and how it can help you become an architect in that space. Before we begin, we do want to let you know that we do have it is a 50% discount for 4th of July coming up for this program. We encourage you that once you've received the information, you've thought about it, that you take action on it, that you use the 50% discount that our team is going to put into the chat box throughout the session. And if you have any questions about it, we welcome you to ask them during the Q&A section. So with that, once again, we're very happy that you're here, and I'll hand it over to our CEO and founder, Michael Gibbs, please.
So welcome, everyone. It's good to see you today. My name is Michael Gibbs, and today we're going to talk about how to become an AI architect. You're going to hear from me, and you're going to hear from David Linthicum, who's actually the chief architect of this program and the primary instructor of this program. So whenever you're going to hear about a perspective, whenever you're going to hear about training, you need to know where the source is coming from. Because is it a credible source where you want to get the information, or is it someone that's still trying to figure it out, that's trying to advise you on how to do something? So I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'll tell you a little bit about David. I'll have David then introduce himself for about a moment. And then I'll give the presentation, and then David and I will answer any of your questions, and David will help me throughout these presentations. So a little about me, if you don't know me, I'm Michael Gibbs. I'm the CEO of GoCloud Careers, and I've got about 25 years plus in IT. I was a lead enterprise architect at Cisco, responsible for their entire healthcare vertical. I was a principal architect at Riverstone Networks, responsible for some of the IP multicast video offerings that we all use throughout the world today. I was a principal architect at Comcast, and I was a lead architect at MCI WorldCom, which was the world's largest internet service provider. Now they're called Verizon. And in the last 2.5 decades of architecture, I've been considered to be an expert on enterprise architectures and network architectures. And I've spent more than 2 decades helping people just like you get your first tech job, get promoted in tech, and really optimize your technology career. That's more than 20 years. At this point, I have graduates that are working at Apple, at Amazon, at Cisco, at Google, at IBM, at Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Zscaler, Palo Alto Networks, and any other prestigious organization through the world. Now, I'm joined here by David Linthicum, and he's got a resume that's even better than mine. He's been in IT now for over 30 years. He was the chief, basically, of cloud strategy, which is like the chief cloud architect for all of Deloitte. He's from AT&T, IBM, and WorldCom, just like me. I'll let him add to that a little bit. But, you know, he's been working with AI now for over 30 years. He told me that his AI experience got him a job at NASA many, many years ago, and that's how long he's been involved in it. So I respect David a tremendous amount, and his background, like mine, is enterprise architecture, but also cloud architecture and AI architecture. So, David, would you like to introduce yourself for a minute or so?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Mike. I think you summarized it very well. I've been working with AI actually since I was 18 years old as a humble college student, working nights and weekends for a big telecom agent. But focused on architecture, focused on emerging technology, where things are going, spent time as a CTO for 5 different companies, most all publicly traded. Started a couple of consulting firms, sold those, and then finished my consulting trend at Deloitte, where I was Chief Cloud Strategy Officer, as you mentioned, for 7 years. So I'm focusing on where the ball's going to be kicked, but also how to use the technology effectively and efficiently, which is what architects should do.
Thank you for that, David. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about what is an artificial intelligence architect, because I promise you, 99% of the people think it's something that it's not. We will then talk about what does an AI architect actually do, which is very different than what people think they typically do. We'll talk about why the AI architect quite frankly, along with the cloud architect and even the enterprise architect, is probably one of the best jobs for 2024 and moving forward. Then we're going to talk about what are the key skills to be an AI architect. And I promise you, they're probably different than what you think they are. And that's okay, because that's what we're going to talk about them. So you know which skills to learn, whether you're with us or trying to figure it out on your own. And then we'll talk about how we build the best AI architects. And then we'll answer your questions for up to an hour and a half, because we want you to really understand this role. It's an incredible role. So what is an artificial intelligence architect? It is a very unique role. It is a hybrid role where you're part business executive and part technology professional. It's not what people think it is. It is not a hands-on technology career. This is mostly, I'd say 2/3 executive and maybe even 1/3 technology. And the AI architect is one of the most strategic of all careers. And, after being an architect for 25 years and David's being an architect for over 30 years, so we've got about 60 years experience between us, and we both basically worked as tech futurists, we consider this to be one of the absolute best technology careers moving forward. And why? Why the AI architect? Well, in the modern world, technology is the ultimate competitive advantage. But here's the thing, most technology projects fail. And why are these technology projects failing? Because there's a disconnect between what the business needs and the technology systems that the organization chooses. So organizations are getting serious about increasing their architecture practices, which are specialists that are experts in business and technology, to make sure businesses actually gain some benefits out of the technology. Because right now, 70% of the time businesses make technology investments, it fails. It's basically pouring money out the window and getting nothing for it. So that's why the architect roles are becoming more and more popular and in demand. So what does an AI architect do? It's not going to be someone that sits behind the desk and codes. It's not going to be anything like that. What do we really do? First part you have to understand is it's this hybrid executive / technology professional role. So the first thing we're going to do is we have to go to the client and find the client's vision for the business. Where do they want that business to go? Because as we put in technology, it can either help the business go in that direction or go in the opposite direction. So if we don't know where the business is going, we have no idea where to begin the architecture. So the next thing we have to understand is the business architecture, which is, how does that organization actually work? How does that organization make money? How does the leadership do their thing? What's the process to create a product? What's the process to service the customer? What's the process of the supply chain? That's the business architecture. And we architects need to know this, because the company's got future business goals, right? They need a future business architecture, which we have to work with them on. And then after that, when we know where the business is going and how they want to operate, then we can think about the kind of technology we need. So we're going to look at that organization's technology. We're going to look at that organization's data. We're going to see what they have. And we're going to ask ourselves, will that get them to the future goals and the outcomes they want? And if the answer is yes, we don't have to do anything. And if the answer is no, we have to create an architecture of people, processes, and technology to support that business growth. Now, when we look at their technology and we're looking at the technologies we can use, we're going to have to understand it all. Because we have to, for the AI, we need to understand the organization's networking, their data center, their cloud, their applications, their security, even their voice and video systems can come into play. So we need to understand that. And, so it's that. So what's going to go into this design phase, right? So we finally figure out what the business needs. We finally started to uncover what they have. Now we need to create an architecture, right? Now, I just told you we're working across AI, networking, security, data center, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. So we're now going to need a team of experts that are going to help create this architecture. So what does that actually mean? It means that we're going to have to go create this team. And we're going to have to lead this team to actually create the solution. We're going to have to go and take this solution, present it to the client, help sell it to the client. And then we're going to have to create the team that's going to build this, and then determine what type of governance this organization is going to need, and create a strategy for that business to leverage that technology in a good manner. So that's what we do. So lots of meetings, lots of facilitation, lots of leadership, lots of sales, lots of stakeholder management. Here's what you didn't hear me say: code. get your hands dirty. This is not a get your hands dirty job. It's an executive position, and it pays executive pay too. So now that you know why businesses need architects and what we architects do, let's talk about why this is one of the most exciting times for architects. Well, AI is not new. Let's be fair. It's 35, 40 years old. What's new is the capabilities of our hardware. GPUs that can process hundreds of teraflops. I mean, that's new. CPUs with 128 plus cores and servers that have a bunch of them. That's new with big, powerful systems. So what's new is the technology that enabled us to do so much more with AI. So we've got a lot of data science things we can do. We've got a lot of AI things we can do. We've got a lot of generative AI. There's going to be distributed AI. We've got advances in cloud. We've got advances in networking. And that pretty much means we can access data from any part of the world, do the compute in any part of the world, and do things much better, faster, and potentially, well, they won't be cheaper, but potentially cheaper in other parts of the business for these things that we're doing, not on the technology side. So the other thing that's growing is we have to understand organizations really need to enhance their productivity. So, and the organization have been struggling with productivity for the last few years. So how big is the opportunity? I mean, let's think about it. Well, I could tell you that NVIDIA went from a sub $1 trillion company to a $3 trillion company in 3 months. And that should give you some idea of where investors are going. But honestly, I don't looking at data like that. And there's a lot of hype too, but it's showing you where money is going. But, if you look at a report that was in Bloomberg, the size of the generative AI market is expected to be $1.3 trillion by 2032. I want to put that into context. $1.3 trillion by 2032. That's about 3 to 4 times the size of today's cloud computing market across all the cloud providers. Put that into context. So an incredible amount of opportunity, an incredible amount of jobs for the people in the right side of this. For people on the wrong side of this, it's going to be very bad for them. But people on the right side are going to make a lot of money here and have a great career out of it. So here's the secret. We've got all these new technologies. We've got all this great AI, right? And yet 70% of technology projects don't do anything for the business. They actually hurt the business because they take money out of the business, which could be invested somewhere else and provide no value. So here is why it's the best time for the AI architect, because that's the AI architect's job, to drive the business, to take the business needs and drive technology versus the engineering approach, which is take the tech and shove it into the business and we'll figure out what the business does with it. And it often doesn't help the business. And sometimes it even hurts the business. I could give you some healthcare examples of that if you guys want after the fact. Please let me know. And by guys, I mean men, women, and everyone. It's just a colloquial term. So, think about that. That's why organizations are investing heavily in their architecture practices, because they need someone that can create a strategy to take all these cool new technologies and do it in a way that's going to be good for the business. So you want some more good news about the AI architecture role, along with the cloud architect role and the enterprise architecture role? Our job is digital transformation. How do we increase our clients' business performance? And clients always are concerned about increasing their business performance. That's their main goal. The goal of a business is to increase shareholder value. So if you think about it, make that. So when you start thinking about this, and you start thinking about what AI can do and what I can't do, businesses know AI can do a lot. It can enhance the productivity they have in employees. It can increase their operational efficiency, and they are willing to throw money at it. But the businesses that adopt this technology will grow rapidly if they do it right. It's the key. If they do it right, then organizations that don't adopt the generative AI approach will probably find themselves out of business. So keep that in the back of your mind. Why do I love AI architect careers and enterprise architect careers and cloud architect careers? Because we cannot be replaced by AI. Look, if you look at Claude 3.5 and see how fast it can code and how well it can code, it should terrify people that are in software engineering professions. Not the best of the best, but it should terrify the average software engineer. AI can write a Terraform script. AI can write a Python script. AI can write a Bash shell script. AI can write a Windows PowerShell script, and AI will program you a video game if you ask it the right questions. But you know what AI can't do? Can't meet with your clients and learn the vision of their business. Can't entertain your clients and build a relationship. Can't sell your architecture to a client. Can't lead a team of some of the best and brightest minds to design a solution for a business. Can't give a presentation and win a crowd, and it can't close $1 billion deal. But an architect can. So while AI is horribly sad for a lot of the engineering roles, and we still need the best engineers, architects cannot be replaced by AI because it's a human job. So another reason I like to see people get out of engineering and move into architecture. And quite frankly, we had a cloud engineering course, which we stopped selling about 1.5 years ago because we didn't want to promote a career which we thought could be done by technology. So now that you know why it's a good career and you know what we do, what are the skills of the AI architect? Well, it's a combination of business skills and technical skills, but it's a combination of both. And you have to understand that it's going to be 80% business and 20% technology for the most part of what we do. But you have to have the tech. We'll talk about what that is, but you can have all the tech in the world and none of the business, and you won't get there. And I've got plenty of engineers that have 20 years of engineering experience that lack the business piece and all the soft piece. And I've had to give them as much training to get them to become architects as I have a nurse or a teacher. And that's okay. Any of you can become a great architect. The key to remember is you've got to have all the skills. I'm going to start with the business skills because they're actually the most critical. So, you have to remember it's a combination of system design skills and business skills, but let me start with the business ones. So the first one is something called CXO relevance. And what is it? It's the ability to connect to the CEO or the CFO or the CIO or the CTO and communicate to them about things that they care about and have them take you actually seriously. And in order to have that, you need to know, not only know what they care about, but you need to have the business knowledge or the business acumen to present to them how your architecture is going to go solve their business problems and learn their business needs. The whole point of the architect is to optimize business performance, and our architects don't know business. How are they optimizing business performance? How are you flying an airplane if you don't know how to fly the plane? So keep that in the back. The next thing that we really need is, as architects, is actually leadership skills. When I design an architecture, it typically takes me a team of 15 to 50 people, 6 to 12 months. And actually, while out of David, you work on an architecture, is it but you by yourself, or is it you leading a team, and how big are your teams and how long do these architectures typically take?
It's always a team, and the team's between 12 and 50 people, depending on how complex the system is.
Okay, so that's why you need leadership team, because you got to build a team of people and you got to work together cohesively to help your client. The next thing is stakeholder management skills. So in any organization, there are people that have a stake in the company, whether it be the C-suite, whether it be the boards, whether it be the department heads, the presidents of the business units, what have you. And anything that you do in one part of the company, architecture-wise, will affect them as well. So you're going to have to make sure that you get the input of all the key stakeholders so you don't break one part of the business, for example. And you're going to also have to negotiate between the stakeholders because each one's going to want different things. And architecture is basically the decision of evaluating all trade-offs and then picking the best decision for the best interest of the company. It's not about looking at the coolest tech. So, that's 2 or 3 of the business skills you need. Now, here's the next thing, sales skills. And here's why it's sales skills. Because you're going to have to sell your management on why you need people to work with you. You're going to have to sell the clients your architectures. You're going to have to be selling stakeholders in some way, shape, or form to negotiate between them to get your goals done. So you're going to need to sell. You're also going to need strong communication skills. No one hands you a piece of paper and says, build this. We're not engineers. We don't build anything. We have to find out what to build, and that comes from a conversation. It's kind of like a doctor. If they can't communicate, they can't get the right diagnosis. I don't know how my veterinarian does it, but in human medicine, I know because that was my old background. We actually have to talk to our patients to make a diagnosis. Unless they're unconscious, then we go via protocol. So the next thing we need are strong presentation skills. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the last part of an architect job interview is an actual presentation in front of a panel of people in most cases. But we're going to be giving presentations to the customers, presentations to the director briefing, presentations to the press, you name it. As architects, it's constant presentations. You're going to have to get good presentation skills. You're also going to have something called executive presence, which is when you walk in the room, people know how to take you seriously. And, you know, you're going to have some training on it, because if you don't have it, you'll struggle there. So keep that in the back of your mind. Of course, we train every one of these skills we're talking about, because it wouldn't be an architect program without it. It'd be an engineering program. You're going to also have to understand, you know, the relationships between all the technologies we have, whether it be networking, cloud, the applications, and how they run. Next thing that we're going to have to remember is we're going to have good vendor negotiation skills and good vendor management. It's not like an AWS certification where everything you see is going to be all out of the AWS certification book. It's not going to be like that in 99% of the cases. You're going to have multiple clouds in 98% of the time. You're going to have multiple different security vendors that are going to be involved. You may have different storage vendors working with other things. You're going to have different networking vendors going throughout your things, different GPU vendors, different server vendors. There's going to be so many things where you're going to need to negotiate between vendors. And the next thing you're going to need is the ability to negotiate both business deals and, quite frankly, negotiating a salary when it comes to ending there. So, of course, we teach that. And employers look for emotional intelligence. So I would say train it. We train it with our clients, but make sure you train it somewhere. It'll have a big impact on your salary anyway. So we talked about all the non-tech architect skills, which are the primary skills for the architect, but you still have to have the tech. And there's a big difference between knowing how to configure the tech and knowing how the tech works. Everybody thinks they're going to learn the tech by configuring it. Well, does anybody learn how to design a bridge by building one? No. And if you don't believe me, which is why most people that do all these hands-on labs will never learn architecture, I'm going to ask you this. You use your computer every single day, right? Do you understand what happens to the time your PC doesn't ARP to the time your packet actually gets to the server? Do you understand the proxy ARPs and all the routing table lookups that go along the way, and the BGP and the MPLS and the ISIS and OSPF routing that's going on in the internet service providers to get your packet from point A to point B? No. And you don't need to. And that's the point. To use something, you don't have to learn how it works. But when you're an architect, you need to understand how things work, not how to configure them. And you can configure them, and I have no problem getting hands-on, but make sure you learn how they work. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So you're going to need to have an understanding of various technologies, and you're going to need to understand how to get the technology to support the business's needs. That means system-wide performance. That means system-wide availability. It means system-wide security. And you're going to need knowledge of a wide range of AI systems and tooling. But you're going to also have to understand its relationship to the infrastructure, networking, compute, storage, etc. So when you understand that, I'll talk about what these skills are. They're going to be AI design skills, because that's the primary thing. And we're going to get to what they are in a minute. But you're still going to need networking design skills, because if there's no network, nothing will work. You're still going to need to have some cloud design skills. And of course, we provide that. Why? Because it's either going to sit in an organization's data center or private cloud, a hybrid cloud, a multi-cloud, or a public cloud, or some combination of that. You're also going to need some data center design skills too, because a lot of the stuff is going to be able to be run better, faster, and cheaper in the data center than in the public cloud. You're going to have good security design skills, because if not, these systems can get hacked, and you don't want these systems getting hacked. And you're going to need skills along with governance, compliance, and even ethics. And of course, we teach every one of these skills and more. Now, I'm going to dive deeper into the AI architect skills that you need. And of course, we teach these in depth. Everything we talk about, we teach, because otherwise it would not be an architect program. You'll need to understand databases and training data, inference engines, AI model building, AI model training, AI model testing, and AI operations. Now, in our training, now we'll talk about our training. It's all about building your architecture career. Anybody can get anybody to pass an exam. That's nothing. Getting you a job that changes your life, getting you an architect role, that's what we're focused on. The end goal is you and your career. In order to achieve that, we have live classes 3 times per week. The AI architecture is taught by David Linthicum. There's no one better in the entire world to teach it. And I'll have him talk in a few minutes, and then we'll go to your questions. He's fantastic. He teaches 2 of those classes. My organization, or I, or one of the members of my team, we tend to teach 1 day of a business acumen, leadership, soft skills. We have 3 MBAs in the program that teach that, 2 PhD business school professors that teach that, and a host of other experts in business to work on these things, because you have to have good business skills too. So 3 live classes per week. And we also have a global Slack community, and it's kind of interesting to see how much traffic actually goes off through our platform. It's almost scary. And the community gets together and they meet up all around the world. I don't care whether it's in Canada, I don't care whether it's in London, I don't care whether it's in Cameroon, I don't care whether it's in Lagos, South Africa, I don't care whether it's in India or Australia or somewhere. We've got people working in groups together to help themselves get better, both locally and across boundaries. And we do a lot of AI case studies, because that's really what you're going to be doing as an architect. And we do a lot of AI architecture projects, not engineering projects, to make you a great architect. And then we also will have you do team projects just like the world. Now, I talked about our live classes. I talked about our community. In between live classes, there's going to be videos for you to watch, required reading for you to do, and assignments for you to do. And when it's a big assignment or an important assignment, we're going to have you turn it in so our team can give you feedback on it. Because practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect. So if you do it wrong and you're not even sure you're doing it wrong and nobody corrects you, you'll build bad habits. But if you do it wrong, you get corrected, you submit it, and you do it right, then you learn how to do it perfectly and you become a great architect. So we have a lot of feedback on our assignments for you, because we want you to get better. Not only do we provide every last component of what you need, from the business skills, from the leadership skills, from all the technical skills that you need, we'll also provide training on building your brand. And we have a marketing executive with 30 years of marketing experience and an MBA in that, to help teach you how to do that, to build your brand, to make it that recruiters come to you, to teach you how to build your recruiters network, to teach you how to build your resume, to teach you how to build your LinkedIn profile and how to use it. We'll help optimize, everything, whether it be your resume or LinkedIn. I don't know if I mentioned resume. I know I mentioned LinkedIn. We will teach you how to interview and even negotiate a higher salary. So come become an AI architect. I think it's the best career in the world. I'd love to train you. And with the July 4th discount, 50% off, our training is probably the cost of less than 2 days. Actually, our training is definitely less than the cost of 2 days pay for our average graduate. So David, would you like to say anything about the program? You're the architect of the program.
This is really an exciting time, because number one, we're reinvigorating an existing set of technologies that has been used. You hit the nail on the head. It's been around since the 50s, and the ability to leverage it as a key innovative differentiator for companies is really kind of at the cusp right now. If you look at interest in AI, it's driven around the innovative value that it's able to bring, so much so that I think a lot of companies are going to find themselves building their next generation of the business around this technology. I see that today. So it's a different line of system. No longer is it a tactical use case. You're not just building inventory control systems and enterprise architectures that provide scalability, or cloud-based systems where you're leveraging serverless and in better, more efficient ways, but the ability to define not only core systems that are very cool to build, namely generative AI systems, but systems are going to define what the business is moving forward. The ability to do things like automate a smart supply chain. So we had a bunch of supply chain issues back in the pandemic. The ability to work our way around that using dynamic, intelligent automation. The ability to leverage edge-based systems and put intelligence at the edge. And you know, whether you're monitoring and controlling a factory floor, your ability to look at different maintenance schedules, ultimately your ability to have businesses that are able to do what they should have been able to do all along, and that's to communicate in real time one to another and make decisions based on that information, almost perfect information, and make decisions that are almost perfect in the ability to understand the context of the data. So AI systems are really, really good at understanding patterns of data. And if you look at most of the things that we do with business, it's about interpreting patterns of data to figure out how to adjust the business, to figure out how to look at in patterns of business, patterns of data lead up to changes we need to make in how we sell something in a retail environment, the ability to change logistics systems so we're much more efficient and optimized, the ability to configure a factory so it's going to be 30% more productive, and the ability to do so in such a way where it actually has a positive benefits on the human beings that are working there. So that's really get at the goodness of this stuff. We're not building 2001: A Space Odyssey. We do have chatbots and all this cool stuff out there. At the end of the day, we're building tactical AI implementations that have strategic value to the company. So you'll be at the cusp in working as an AI architect, and not only you know, working on some very cool systems, but really kind of generating something that's going to define what the business is. And this is probably more of a technological shift than it would with the first generations of automation that occurred in the 60s, and then the rise of the mainframe systems and the rise of distributed computing, the rise of the cloud, and the rise of the internet. But the ability to leverage all this various technology in such a way where it's going to have a configuration that's going to provide more value ultimately back to the business. And I think that's what we need to kind of focus on. It's going to need a couple of things. Number one, we have to have a lot of smart people who are able to make these decisions. And the main thing is we have to have a lot of innovative leaders that are hybrid in nature, and they understand the value of the technology, what the technology is. They can have conversations with engineers, they have conversations with network specialists, conversations with security specialists, and at the same time, typically in the same day, have a conversation with C-level folk, conversation with boards of directors, conversations with investors. And it's this kind of linking of both worlds where the value is to be had, because we're not building something without sight of the business, without the agreement of the stakeholders and what we're building, how to take everything to the next level. We're working with the company in duality of it, and that we're able to bridge the stakeholders, the leaders in the organization, and the technology is able to leverage. And by the way, that's something that's been missing for many years. If you look at the reason we have cloud architects, the reason we have enterprise architects, the reason that's been a growing discipline over the last 20, 30 years, I think people understood initially that there is going to be a chasm between the two worlds, and that chasm needed to be bridged by an individual leader that's able to bring these things together. In other words, they're able to run the teams, they're able to build the system, supervise the building of the systems, able to hire the right people, able to lead the right people, but also understand the value that they're able to deliver to the business, be able to explain it to the stakeholders, and also be able to explain it to people on the team. So it's a special person. We're training people to do a very special high-value job. That's why they pay well. And your ability to put the discipline in terms of developing your soft skills and developing your executive presence, and develop your ability to lead, and your ability to have empathy with people you're working for, your ability to understand ethics, your ability to understand kind of the basic working parts of the system without getting too far down into the weeds of it, is going to really build up to your success. And so people who are interested in this are going to be people that want to have a dynamic position that pays very well, that provides them with an eclectic array of things that they need to do on a daily basis to bring value back to the business that they can see. Keep in mind, most of us work jobs where we're doing work which is going to have some sort of value that's brought back to the business, but we never see it. It's tactical value. We're delivering invoices. We're making sure things are shipped on time, things like that. This is one of those things where you can look at the amount of the work that you've done in 2 years and say, this not only added value to the business, but this really defined the next generation of the business. And I don't think there's any other technology wave that I've been involved with in my career that's been anything like that. So the potential is absolutely huge. enterprises understand this. So they're investing in generative AI. They're investing in their workforce. They're investing in their generative AI leadership. So they do have the architects in place to build these systems. In many cases, they're looking to hire hundreds of architects over the next few years because they have to fill these slots with building these systems that are strategic to the business and are able to report directly to leadership. They're interested in getting people in the organization that are able to promote, are able to become executives in the organization, able to, work their way up into master architect positions or in CTO positions, things like that. So the potential and the opportunity right now in front of us is unlimited in my mind. If you look at where things are going, everything's going to shift over to the utilization of this technology one way, shape, or form or another. And your ability to have an architectural control over how that technology is configured is going to be a key asset for the organization. So you're in the right place at the right time if you're interested in being an AI architect, because I think it's foundational to what businesses are. And unlike other architectural positions, which I've held, by the way, and this is something that's going to define where the business is going. And I don't think there's been any other technology that's come along we really can say that.
Thank you for that, David. Okay, so let's answer questions that we can.
All right. If you guys don't mind, before we answer any questions, just want to remind everybody, you might have already seen the team pop it into the chat. We do have the 50% discount that is applicable to the generative AI development program. But also, if you're interested, and as you browse the website, there's different programs that you might find that you either want to get in conjunction to the generative AI program, or that might pique your interest. Well, in case if you know somebody else, that also might be of their benefit. Additionally, as we get into the question and the answer portion now of our webinar, we want to remind you all, this section is particularly for your benefit. So don't be shy. There's no such things as stupid questions. They're only stupid if you don't ask them. So this is for your benefit, for your career development. So make sure you take advantage of David and Mike, two experts in both cloud and AI field, so that you can get your questions answered. You can pop them in the chat box, of course, or alternatively, and we encourage everybody, if you can do that, please use the Zoom raise hand function, and then we welcome you to come off mute as well. So that way you can have a discussion with David, with Mike, and depending on how we go, I'll also chime in if applicable. So go ahead, please.
No, sorry. I just want to say something before we get to Q&A.
Sure.
This is unique training. There's no other long-form mentored training where you have the amount of video that's out there and access to the technology leaders, 2 hours a week and also unlimited via Slack. That doesn't exist in the training world. If you look at how people are training AI architects out there, they're throwing videos at them. They're putting them through very tactical certifications. And the kinds of talent they're getting outside of those micro courses is not necessarily going to be in the realm of what enterprises are looking for. So this training is designed for you to get a job. It's not designed for you to have tactical skills. It's designed for you to adapt to a career trajectory. Either it's going to be a small pivot or a big pivot, depending on what you are. We have, in my teachings over the years, I have police officers and teachers and people who came from very different career paths who became architects and were able to double, sometimes triple their salaries, and also double and sometimes triple their satisfaction in making this marketplace. So understand that we're doing something differently here. You won't find any other kind of training like this on the planet.
Oh, you said we do get.
Okay, just one moment, guys. Yeah, and actually, we got about a 3-part question, and I think it's going to go nicely into what you just mentioned, David, and maybe we can expand a little bit on it, get your viewpoint, get Michael's viewpoint as well. The initial question that we have is going to come from David Madoff. So the first part is, does your generative AI architect program provide direct connections to a reliable, responsive, and experienced set of trusted IT technical recruiters that actually come from the IT industry after a certain point within the training program, or only after the completion of a program?
Okay, and I'll address this. I know my team actually responded to David's email on this matter yesterday as well. So David,
Okay.
We teach people how to build a recruiter network because there's good recruiters, and you should have 2 to 3 good recruiters throughout your career. And then there are a majority of recruiters that are collecting resumes and wasting your time. And yes, there are times when I call. For example, I see Gwen is on this call. I would happily call a recruiter that I know by the CEO of a recruiting firm, Christina, in New York, immediately for Gwen if she asks me. Because I know Gwen. Gwen's been in my program. Gwen's doing a great job, and I know that she's there. Now, I have other people that don't come to class, don't do the work, and are not prepared. And I couldn't call a recruiter and say, this person's prepared if I know they're not prepared. So it's also dependent upon the person and where they're at in their journey. I used to practice internal medicine in my youth. And when someone came in and I said, I need pain medicine, can you give it to me? I couldn't guarantee that I'd give them pain medicine because if it wasn't in their best interest, I would not give it to them, even if it was. So, you have to use your judgment. And if somebody's ready, and I know one of my recruiters says, Mike, I need somebody because I get these calls all the time. I do make introductions, but I teach people how to build the connection. This is a how to be an architect. This is a how to negotiate a higher salary. This is a how to be a leader. I need the people to learn how to do it and build their own team that they're going to carry with them, that team, throughout their career.
All right. And the second part of that question, Mike, and I'm actually going to couple both of the last two sections together and then we can address them. This is still coming from David as well. He wonders if these technical recruiters or hiring managers tend to come to our graduates from the Gen AI program from which they can be put in touch. So he's trying to figure out, is this a proactive or reactive kind of relationship? And then additionally, and maybe, do you want to address that one first before we go to the last one?
Let's address that one before we get to the next one. So here's the thing. We do have a lot of employers come to us. There was a cloud company that sent one of their VPs to our class recently because they were looking to hire architects. And the people in the cloud architect program will remember, I think it was June 7th or June 8th. It was director over at AWS that came to our class to talk about why he loves our graduates so much, because of all the other business things we taught, which were not tactical. So the answer is yes, people do come to us all the time. Having said that, we teach people how to be independent, because what happens, after your first job? What are you going to do for your second job? What are you going to do for your third job and your fourth job? How are you going to get into the roles that very few people that would even open the doors for, unless you're going through a company like a Korn Ferry International? And many of these C-suite roles and many of these executive architect roles only go through those. And other ones you actually could potentially get there by applying for, but we want you to have the skills. So we're going to teach you how to be your own leader for your own future.
Fantastic. And then the final part of David's question was, and do these recruiters or hiring managers recognize your program as one of the preeminent programs given its rigor as compared to other competitors?
Well, I can tell you that a lot of companies do come to us in the last year. And I mean, mine is nothing like David's. I've been in CIO Magazine, Data Center Magazine, DevOps Magazine, Tech Republic, Tech Radar, Information Week. Maybe it was the last 12 or something like months like that. I've been quoted in Forbes. I've been quoted in Investors Business Daily. So my name is pretty known. And people that know me in the industry know me. And I've got a pretty big name. But David's is bigger than mine. David, how many publications have you written?
7,000. And it's funny, one of the students called me to task on that in the class on Tuesday, and that's based on mathematical utilization, the number of blogs I've had, the postings I've made, since I started writing when I was 18 years old. But I'm in InfoWorld, I'm in CIO, I'm quoted by lots of different press resources out there. Started doing some work with Cube Research and have reports out on GigaOM, and you could just Google away and just kind of get the place. I'm fairly eclectic out there in my postings. But I've had the cloud blog on InfoWorld for the last 12 years. And been writing and speaking about AI and distributed computing probably for the last 30 years. Wrote many books on cloud. 4 of them are behind me, and various books on technology, 4 of them behind me. But I do a lot of writing and speaking because I find it's a great way to kind of keep up with the technology. At this point, I've kind of lost track as to how much has been done, but enjoy doing it. You can find my stuff out there. And so if I have an opinion, you're going to see it written down someplace, or you're going to see it spoken to a microphone or a video. That's just kind of the way we roll.
Yeah. And if you all don't mind, I wanted to add something for everybody so they understand. This program is unique. There really is nothing like it out in the field. If you've been paying a little bit of attention when it comes to the actual kind of noise that you see out in the Wild Wild West, we'll call it, the IT industry, you'll notice that some of the vendors are slowly jumping on the same bandwagon, trying to figure out how they can take advantage of this in-demand skill of artificial intelligence. And what you'll notice, many of them have very badly defined type of outlines. For example, AWS does not even give you an outline yet. It won't be available until August. The only one I've seen a little bit that has somewhat of a decent outline, and this one won't become available until the, I think towards the end of February 2025. And it's going to be part of an elective that you can get if you opt to go for a Cisco certified design expert certification. So it's not an exam or certification on its own. And that one, I would probably say, is a little bit more complementary towards what David and Mike have put together in this course. So just understand that when it comes from a recruiter's perspective, there's very little out there that is going to help them understand the difference between all of that. And that's why name recognition, having a industry expert like David on the team who came up and designed this particular architecture program, who has also 30 plus years of experience, just like Michael, that's what really is the name brand recognition that you're going to get, because it's such a novel idea to bring this concept of artificial intelligence to the mainstream, something that's already been done for so many years because of the technical advancements that we've made. So just keep that in mind, David, if you're looking for something specific out there. It does not exist outside of the program that you currently have available. The closest will be eventually Cisco, but even there is going to be more specific towards the networking end when it comes to artificial intelligence. This course is very strategic, is going to be more geared towards actually at the high level C-suite aspect of a business compared to just the network design aspect on what needs to be done to get AI or just a generative AI kind of architecture up and running. So just please keep that in mind. If you gentlemen don't mind, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's get Vinod, since they raised their hand,
Sounds good.
to get them muted, and then let's see what type of question they may have for us.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to unmute myself. I have two questions. When I was checking the curriculum, I noticed that only AWS and Azure have been included. What about GCP? I am a GCP guy. So do you guys have any plan to include GCP?
Okay, so let me talk about why we have AWS and Azure, and why knowing GCP is nowhere close to enough anyway, and by knowing AWS is nowhere close enough, or Azure is nowhere close enough. They're all the same. It's
Yes.
just renting space in somebody else's data center. I don't care if you use a virtual machine on a VMware ESXi. I don't care if you use Nutanix. I don't care if you use OpenStack. I don't care if it's a EC2 instance, Compute Engine instance, Azure Virtual Machine, Oracle machine. It's the same thing that VMware invented in 1999 and IBM did their version of virtualization in the 1970s. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Why do we even have any AWS or Azure training? Well, we only have it there because if you're looking in the certification world and you're looking for one thing that might help you get an interview, we pick the ones that have the highest market share, which right now is AWS or Azure. There's enough training in our program where we cover the storage area networks and the security systems that are going to be what we do in real life anyway.
Mhm.
Because you're not going to be securing your systems with Google security things at the enterprise level. And you're not going to be using Amazon's contact center in most cases at the enterprise level. You're going to be using something from a real unified communications vendor. So doesn't matter, but we cover all clouds in these programs and all clouds are used. We just picked the two biggest ones to add training, because if you're going to focus your training on a specific cloud, and you're looking to train people and get them their first job, and you got to remember, I deal with a lot of people. Daniel Bosu didn't graduate high school, but we got him hired at JP Morgan Chase. Whether it was Wallace Agana, who was a sales rep that's now at JP Morgan Chase as an enterprise architect, or Ivan Tambo, who was 24 years old working as a waiter that's now over at AWS. I got story after story after story, and we can go through names. I've got to give people the tools that are most marketable. And that's not GCP. But if you really know the cloud, and I proved it to a friend of mine, I wanted to tell my friend how easy the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam would be. And he said, "What do you mean, Mike?" He said, "You'd never work in the Google Cloud." I said, "I promise you I can pass it within 48 hours. He made a joke. We made a bet. It was about a bottle of scotch. There was a Cybex book on the Google Professional Cloud Architect. I read it on a Saturday, Sunday, took it on a Monday, and the exam set off, and I passed it. Because if you know one cloud, you know them all.
Understand. Yep. I have one more question. If I want to fast track the learning, how many hours should I give per week? Fast track in the sense, let's say like 3 months. I want to complete within 3 months. I want to complete. Is it good idea?
What are you doing now?
As at the moment, I am working as a conversational AI designer / architect for GCP.
So tell me the first question you ask of a client when you meet them to be sure that their architecture is going to be successful. I'll give you a little assessment and see how long I think it's going to take.
I go for the business requirement and the technical requirement. What are your business requirement and what are your technical requirements?
Okay.
For the architect.
And how do you know your architecture is going to be successful then? What are you measuring? What are you going to measure it against?
Suppose it's a model. Suppose I'm going with there should be some benchmark index. There should be some metrics defined based on the right.
Okay.
There should be some parameters.
Yeah, and when are you going to find them? There's a reason I'm asking.
Yeah, understand where you are going, but again, if someone is has implemented something similar, so he should have those kind of numbers with him, right?
So that's the question I was asking, is whether you were really working as an engineer versus whether you're working as an architect. David, what would be the first question you would ask your client if you want to be able to measure success?
Have we lived up to the business expectations? And are returning value back to the business?
And the first question I might ask my client is, what's your measure of success? Because I'm going to work backwards from that measure of success. That's how David get whether it worked. He's right. And I also know David would typically ask a client, what's your measure of success? Where do you begin to start the architecture? And that's how he determines when it's in the end. If you're not thinking with that in mind, you're thinking first of the technology, Vinod. And I think you've got a really strong technology background. But I will tell you, with really good engineers, it typically takes about 6 months to change the engineering mindset to the architect mindset.
6 months. Okay.
Because it's not your technical abilities. That's going to be a breeze for you. You're going to skate through that and you're going to get there in 3 months. I promise you will. That's going to be the easy thing. When was the last time you presented to a board and got $50 million plus for a project?
No.
Okay, that you're going to be doing. When was your last executive briefing or last time you built a business council of C-suite leaders?
No, I'm not at that level yet.
But you will be. That's what we're training you for. That's what an architect does.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be
That's what I'm trying to say.
You're going to be called upon to work with executive teams and work up budgets and help direct presentations. Some of this stuff you won't have to do on your own. You're going to have to oversee it and supervise it. And your ability to go out there and sell, and your ability to go out there and report, and your ability to go out there and be responsible for these core metrics in terms of returning value back to the business really defines what architects do. And that's the difference between an engineer who builds something, which is perfectly fine, And an architect ultimately sees through and orchestrates the task, orchestrates delivery of the system, orchestrates the understanding of the business, orchestrates the requirements gathering, and does a lot of things that people, may not understand initially. They hear the word architect, they think engineer. I think that's the fallacy that's going out there right now. Architect is much more systemic and much more important, much more strategic to the organization. Sorry to interrupt you, Mike.
Right. So that is what, like I am at the stage, like I'll be considering like senior consultant, and I'm trying to move to the architect position. So that's why I'm trying to, select a course which can suit my need.
I know we can help you. I just wanted to set reasonable expectations.
Yes.
The things that we talked about, that's what we do at this level. And that's why it's so highly paid. And do you see how I asked David a question and instantly I loved his response? Because it was immediately going straight to the thought and the planning of how do you get to success. My initial response was the same thing. What is it? And that's how David and I design. We work backwards from those goals. Most people basically just assume the business, and that's okay. I think you'll be a phenomenal architect. And the hardest part will be to learn how to think like an architect versus an engineer. And when you do that, you'll be incredible.
Thank you.
Many of my best architects had that same challenge, and they become great.
And you guys, this is for everybody. You want to keep in mind that what this program really does is equip you to not just understand from a technology aspect of what it is that you're dealing with, how the design might impact the technology itself, but really what you're doing is you're superseding that. You're going on the aspect where you can take this type of technology and you can apply it to specific business use cases. The platform that might be using, if it's going to be Amazon Web Services, it's going to be Google Cloud, if it's going to be Oracle, whatever those platforms may be, they're just one single aspect of the actual architecture. What if we actually told you guys that you're going to be competent and prepared to take something like a generative AI system and actually design it with the C-suite in mind and the business requirements and how you're going to measure your business success eventually for an on-premise data center or a multi-cloud hybrid environment? This is really what the program prepares you for. Once you go into the details of requiring one cloud service provider compared to the other ones, then you can have a team around you that's going to help you understand if there's particular frameworks in place for those cloud service providers, how you can integrate your processes into theirs. But aside from that, you're going to be so far well off prepared than just singly being stuck into a specific vendor platform. That's, again, what makes this unique, and also the architecture position unique, because we're not teaching you simply to become operational experts. This is a strategic position, a managerial position that has access into the actual what makes the business tick, what makes the business successful. So just keep that in mind, that the technology is a little aspect of a much larger goal, and that's turning you all into leaders and to be able to perform eventually with some additional experience like Michael and like David themselves. So just remember that there's a lot more to this than simply the technology of what AI is, what machine learning is, and so forth. So let's go ahead and let's take the hand up from Neka.
Hi, thanks everyone for taking my call. So I'm a CPA. I'm a CPA. I'm studied accounting, I have an accounting degree, and I did that for several years before I transitioned into technology and got my CISSP and CISA. So I do struggle with the technology. We kind of get in my mind to wrap around technology. So I'm more comfortable on the accounting financial side. So in terms of this transition, how critical for me is networking as a baseline? Like do I absolutely have to know that inside and out to even have a good chance at this?
For which architect role?
Sorry?
For which architect role? A cloud architect or an AI architect?
For both, actually.
Okay, so I will tell you this. First, don't be scared of networking. Do you know why networking is hard? Because 99% of the people that tried to teach it to you didn't know networking. I can tell you this with certainty. If either me or Mark were to teach you networking, it would be very simple for you. And I've trained thousands of networking people over the years. But the second side of it is, as a cloud architect, you're going to need more networking than you would as AI, because the cloud is the entire infrastructure. But we will give you what you need, and whatever you need, you'll be taught, at least with us, in an easy manner. I can tell you that a lot of people we've trained didn't come from tech. Jennifer Ema was a mental health tech before she got hired as an architect at JP Chase. I can tell you Jermaine Hafton was actually selling landscaping gear in his own business before he got hired as an enterprise architect at Southern New Hampshire University. I can tell you Balwinder Kerr was a stay-at-home mom before Microsoft hired her. I could tell you Jordan Cateau, oh, what a great guy he was, a Cameroonian guy. He got hired by AWS, and he was a college student before. I mentioned Daniel Bosu, who actually dropped out of high school, didn't get a GED, but we still got him hired at JP Chase, and he did it. Jeffrey West was a geologist. So it doesn't matter. Noah Parker was a social worker. If you come from accounting, you're going to have an attention to detail. That's going to help you. If you're coming from accounting as a CPA, you probably have to get some information from your clients in order to put them in the best situation. That's the same information gathering that we actually have to do here as architects. I think you'll be in a good way. So you can do it. I know you can. The question is, are you scaring yourself out of doing it? But I'm 100% sure you can do it if you truly want to.
Great, thank you.
All right, fantastic. We have a question from Brandon Porter. They're wondering, what if you don't have a college degree? Does that qualify or disqualify you from joining this program? David, would you be all right giving us your opinion on that?
Yeah, I just did a YouTube video on that last week. Do you need college for cloud? Do you need college for any architectural career? The reality is you don't. I have a degree, even teach at colleges and things like that. And the reality is that businesses have kind of come off the requirement for a college degree or even a particular kind of college degree a lot in the last 10, 15 years. And the reality is it's not a determinant of success, whether somebody has a college degree or not. They figured that out. So people can take their own personal training journey around college and be perfectly fine. And it happens a ton. A lot of people who are the best architects that I know, they never went to college. And you see it all the time. I'm not putting down college, but it's not going to be on the critical path for this career.
Absolutely not. Microsoft got rid of degree requirements. IBM got rid of degree requirements. Google got rid of degree requirements. People are looking for problem solvers that are energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about their work. They're looking for people that'll go above and beyond, people that can actually work in teams, people they can trust, and people that can do their job and do it well. And it's near impossible to find all those in a single person right now. So become that, you'll have any job you want.
Yep. Fantastic. Let us go on to the next question from Femi Daramola. They're asking, what are the prerequisite knowledge or skill sets for the program enrollment? Now, we already touched on one of them, right? You don't need a degree. Is there anything else that is prerequisite or not?
Yes, you have to want to be an architect. You have to want to do the work. You have to be willing to do the work, because I want you to get a great job in the end. We start everybody at ground zero, because no matter how much experience you have in one thing, I promise you, if you're really great at one thing, you're going to have gaps in a lot of things. And if you're doing a whole lot of things, you'll have gaps in a whole lot of things, because you can either be focused and great at one thing or go real wide and not super deep in other things. So we're going to make sure you get what you need. David, you have a perspective on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is about you being able to put in the time and being willing to do the work that you need to do it, like you just said. That's completely dependent on your ability to be successful. This is a course like any other courses that provides you with the tools that you need to be successful. But unless you're able to put that with the willingness to work, your willingness to learn, your willingness to practice, your willingness to learn different aspects about the job, the soft skills, the hard skills, the processes of being an architect, things like that, that's going to be completely dependent on your success. Other than that, you really don't need to come with even a high school degree. You can come with just the willingness, the knowledge, your ability to building your ability to communicate, and just kind of understand that this is going to be a transformative experience, and you're going to have to put the effort and the time into it to make it work for you.
And we had a similar question from Mohan Krishnarai. If this answered your question, please let us know in the chat. Otherwise, if you need some clarification, we'll add it to it and we'll get back to it, because it was very similar in regards to what skills are required to actually get into this type of career. So Mohan, if you're still listening, please let us know if this answered your question. In the meantime, gentlemen, it did as well. Okay, fantastic. Mohan or anyone else, if you do have any other follow-up questions or you need clarification, once again, this is the time to do it. It's very similar to the format that we have in the classes, where you can actually speak to an instructor, get a better understanding of things. If anything is unclear, again, this is your time. This is for your guys' benefit and gals as well. We don't want to exclude you all. So looking at the next question that we have available, as a matter of fact, gentlemen, if you don't mind, let's go to Srivali, who raised their hand. And Srivali, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hi, Michael, and hi, David. I have a customer service experience, and I recently got laid off from Microsoft. I have about 9 years of customer service experience as a Tier 4 engineer. And I'm actually looking to become an AI architect. And I see a lot of skill gap between, because I don't know ABCs of AI. I'm just learning the ABCs of Gen AI. What would you recommend for me? That's one question, and I have another question. Given your extensive experience being an architect, both of you, have you ever seen a problem where all three clouds, let's say Azure, AWS, Google being the major players in the cloud industry, have you seen a situation where you have not you are in a situation where the solution is not out of the box and you have to develop a new technology to solve a particular problem? Yeah, those are the two questions.
Well, I'll take the first one. We teach you what generative AI is and what AI is generally within the course. So we'll start from the assumption that you're showing up without prerequisite knowledge. You're not an AI engineer, even though some people may come from that thing, but we don't assume that that knowledge exists. And so we get you through the course in terms of what the technology is, how it works, applicability, things like that, and do so in the simplest way possible so you can understand that. What was the second part of your question as far as relating to technology and clouds?
Right. So I wonder if there was a situation where a client wanted you to implement a solution, and the solution was not readily available out of the box from all three clouds, Azure, AWS, and Google, and you had to come up with a new technology, like new implementation of a technology which did not exist.
Well, we have to build the technology with tooling and things like that. So it depends on what the technology was that someone's defining that doesn't exist. But say it's something like when I used to do sounding rockets systems, or obviously that was a single use thing. It was a unique thing and innovative thing unto itself. But I would use different tools and technologies to build it. But as an architect, we can take these abstract problems and we can look out into the technology universe, and if the technology doesn't exist off the shelf, which it typically doesn't, it's going to be the integration of different technologies that will get you further down the pike, and then a matter of building out the missing pieces. And so it becomes a bit of a challenge unto itself, because you can't find an analog out there on the market. But if you're building a product, my days as a product CTO, that's all I built. I was building unique software products that didn't exist, or else no one would come to the company and buy the products. So it's basically the same sort of problem. We've been solving that problem for decades.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
And I'll answer the same thing. First, I want to say what you did in your past has no bearing on what you want to do in your future. You can change it any day. I used to practice internal medicine. I was a nurse practitioner, and then poof, 6 months later, I'm a lead architect. So we can be what we want. as long as we focus our training and our efforts in the direction that we desire. The second piece of it is I don't think I've ever done an architecture where we didn't have to create something that actually didn't exist. For example, you know, when I helped create some of the original clouds, the VPLS clouds and some of the BGP clouds, you know, a lot of the times the routers and switches and network architectures that we would deal with didn't have the feature set or the functionality. So we would either have to develop custom ASICs or custom FPGAs or custom cards. There would always be constantly creating specific features in software that there were times where we'd sell a solution to a client and couldn't recognize revenue on it for 2 years later because we owed them features that were part of the overall architecture. So yeah, I've been dealing with that for about 2.5 decades. You have to remember the big clouds are about 20 years behind what we've been doing in the data center, specifically on the networking things. So in the cloud, almost everything is a workaround. It's a workaround to the lack of networking in the cloud. It's a workaround to the slow storage speeds in the cloud, which you could do better in the data center. So assume if you work on the cloud, you're going to have to be working on some of their limitations in order to make it work the way you need to.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Welcome. Doesn't mean I still don't love the cloud.
All right, next question is from John Smith. They're asking, will this include the Cloud Architect Career Development Program? Or perhaps is there some type of crossover between the Generative AI Development Program and the Cloud Architect Development Program?
So this is a different program. The Cloud Architect Career Development Program is designed to turn you into a cloud architect, and it's its own program. The AI Architect program is designed to turn you into an AI architect. Different career. Now, I do have people that sign up for the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and then they have an add-on option to purchase the AI Architect Curriculum Differences for a small fee. There is an upgrade path for that, and the upgrade but it's less than the cost of the whole program. But no, they're separate programs.
Okay, fantastic. If that doesn't answer your question, John, or if you have any follow-up, feel free to submit them in the chat. We'll get to them and address them in due time. We do have a two-part question from Tim. Now, the first part is, what is the current realistic demand to hire AI architects, especially since companies are in the evaluation phase?
It's if they're in the evaluation phase, they need an architect to drive the program. And if you're looking on a LinkedIn, you'll see a number of AI architect jobs or AI leader jobs. Sometimes they get confused about the titles that are talking about someone who's able to jumpstart their AI program within their environment, hiring the team, hiring the developers, hiring the engineers, hiring the data scientists, hiring the ethicists, all the infrastructure you need to make it happen, because businesses see this as their future. And before they even get into the prototyping of stuff, they're hiring an architect to drive some of the stuff. The worst thing they can do, and I always tell this to my clients, is to figure out that you want to do this and then try to hire your team in 3 months. You're not going to be able to do that. You have to, that's going to be at least a 6 month to a year runway to get the people up that you need running. And you need to hire the leader first, because he or she can pick their team and really design their team underneath them to be successful. So you have to get to a key leader, a key architect, you know, someone who's really driving that. So it's by the way, companies are building this stuff now. If you look at the revenue that's coming from cloud providers, it's coming from AI revenue, which means that people are leveraging the technology on the cloud providers to make it happen. And even some of the on-premise lift that we see going on, and certainly the NVIDIA explosion that occurred as well. So people are buying hardware and buying cloud time to build this technology. So don't think that people are just building prototypes now. They're just not advertising it. But they're hiring the architects first to drive a lot of this stuff. And so that's why we're seeing the demand start to spike. They're a little confused sometimes in terms of how they advertise these positions. It's, you know, VP of AI strategy and things like that when they're really looking for an architect. But they're looking for key hybrid technology leadership to drive their AI strategy now. So that would be the architects.
Yeah.
And David,
and David said something that's really important there. You need the architect as part of the trial or the testing. Because if not, what are you testing? Are you testing that the technology works? Yeah. Okay. So what's the technology solving for? Because you test one use case of the technology because you don't have your architect. Then you get your architect, and your architect works because your executives wanted to do this, and everything they spent, all the testing they did was completely meaningless because it was testing for a different use case. So must have the architects there to do the testing, and the demand is huge.
And they had a follow-up to it. It will tie nicely into this. They were wondering during which particular phase in a company would you bring in an AI architect, and then what would be their expectations? I think both of you kind of were hinting towards this idea that a company has to perform the business aspect of the due diligence first, right? That planning phase, the thinking about it. Is that particular that phase you might bring in the AI architect, or is there a different phase where a company might look at and say, okay, this is the time to bring somebody like that in to our team?
They're brought in at all phases before the requirements are understood, because someone has to define how the requirements are going to be gathered. Someone who's figuring out the team you need to deal with the requirements. You're hiring data scientists, using them to assess the existing as-is state of the data, including semantics and metadata state, and then driving everything through. So they're systemic to everything that goes within the project. This idea that you can, hire an AI architect for the first 3 months and hope for success is just a fallacy. You need those people through the testing, for the implementation, the operational planning. They do all of it soup to nuts. And by the way, they're the ones responsible for it. So if they're going to be responsible for it, they have to be picking all stages of the game, including the processes, the people, the tools, the technology, the configuration of stuff, understanding the requirements, dealing with security and compliance. So there's never going to be a demarcation line where you're decoupling from that person and providing a coupling on. Sometimes when you're dealing with consulting firms, they have to span a lifespan, but the architects are going to be throughout that lifespan, because I've been that person. And then you throw the keys to the client and then, move on to the next project. That's not optimal, but companies do things that way. But still, the architect's there from the time you turn the lights on till the time last one leaves the building.
Okay, fantastic. So basically bring them in as early as possible so that you can impact the direction of the company, so that you can basically plan as much for success as possible.
Only if you want to be successful.
Only if you'd like to make a good return, right?
Right.
Okay, fantastic. I tell you what, guys, let's go ahead and let's ask Kevin Grant, since he has his hand up, if you can unmute himself. Kevin, can you hear us?
Yes, Mark.
All right, go ahead and please ask your question, sir.
All right, thank you. Hey, Michael and David and Mark, thank you all for taking the time. Really quick, how much of the Gen AI program covers the ethicists?
It's a part of it, but we talk about ethics, and we talk about the role of a ethicist, which is an ethics specialist. But it's part of the program because it's a part of doing an architecture. Ethics is a large part of what generative AI is, because as I tell Mike, it's not when you're going to have to explain something in court. It's not if, it's when. And I think that your ability to have an ethics control over the system, figure out how to deal with the ethics and responsibility stuff is a big part of this. And certainly we're dealing with regulations and compliance today. You're not taking the brunt of that. You're hiring someone who's doing it. That's what an ethics specialist is, or even a compliance specialist. But you're managing that environment. And that's always going to be in the back of your head in terms of making the right ethical decisions as you're building and deploying these systems.
Yeah, and I think I can add context to it because, Kevin, you had sent a question to our team, and the team actually forwarded to me based upon a YouTube video that I made. So are you referring to becoming an AI ethicist?
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to be something totally different. Now, there are some careers, typically speaking, where you don't need a lot of education, formal education, you can learn on the job. And there are certain careers that tend to be very academic and very heavy. An ethicist role often carries a PhD or a law degree. And the reason they're looking for people typically with a doctorate, usually in law, but sometimes a PhD, is because these are very academic issues. They're going to affect legal things and they're going to affect lawsuits. So you can do this, and it could be a great career. It won't pay as much as a cloud architect, but it's still going to be a great career. but understand you're going to need that, PhD, that level education for something like that.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for that question, Kevin. Let us move on to our next question, gentlemen, from M. Noor. They're asking, for someone aspiring to become a cloud architect, does pursuing a career as an AI architect offer better job prospects? Maybe I can get both your takes on that one.
You want to go first, Mike?
Yeah, so M. Noor, I think we have to look at short-term versus long-term. Long-term, you're going to be great in either one. Everything is cloud, and whether it's a data center, it's still a cloud. Whether it's running VMware, it's a cloud. Whether it's running Nutanix, it's a cloud. Whether it's running OpenStack, it's a cloud. So everything's a cloud. So organizations need to run their technology somewhere. So the infrastructure itself will always be a critical role. That cloud architect is a critical role. The AI architect, again, AI is not new, but it's here now, and it's coming with a vengeance, and that's where all the money's going. So in the short term, meaning the next 5 years, I think you have more opportunity as an AI architect because there's this massive demand, and there's nobody out there that knows anything about AI for the most part, other than the few of us that have been working on global enterprises. So you're at the perfect part of the supply and demand curve for probably the next 5 years as an AI architect. After that, I think it'll be more normal. The cloud architect, the AI architect, it'll probably be in the same demand, but that's my take. There's a lot of jobs out there that have, all architect pay is good. Average cloud architects in that 200 to 250, but any architect who's got some real cloud experience with experience and capabilities and business acumen is in that $400,000 or $500,000 range. There's a lot of AI architect roles that actually pay above that role without even that level of experience. What have you seen out there, David, in terms of AI architect jobs?
They're both great career paths. A lot of opportunities for cloud architects and a lot of opportunities for AI architects. AI, as you mentioned earlier, AI architecture position, as you mentioned earlier, it's a resurgence of use of the technology, redefining of what the technology is, and so it's more volatile and quick growing, and therefore it can be frustrating if you're trying to get into that as a career path or trying to find a job there because there's a lot of misinformation, misunderstandings in the marketplace. But it has a tendency because of the volatility there to pay a bit more. So I am seeing premiums paid to salaries of generative AI architects or AI architects just because of the newness of it and everybody's reaction that they think is strategic to the business. Very much like we saw with cloud architecture rise in 2010 through 2014. We saw the same sort of interest, the same sort of confusion, the same sort of volatility. We're seeing the same thing occur in the AI space, but probably times 4 of what we saw in the cloud space back then. So just kind of consider that. I would not dissuade anybody from taking any career path, any role. It's going to be very lucrative, very fun. They have very similar patterns. Obviously, they do architecture, which gets down to business requirements and a lot of things that are exactly the same from one discipline to the other. Just one's going to be a bit more dynamic and changing over the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Both great options. And you got to do what you love, M. Noor. That's the key. If you love it, you'll be great at it. I love infrastructure. It's where I like to spend my time because I come from an infrastructure background. So, there's that.
All right. Thank you very much for the question, Noor. We do have a little bit of a longer combination of questions from Mr. Jonathan Jackson. So I'm going to read out first, let you guys digest a little bit, and then we'll comment on this. So Jonathan Jackson says, I'm enjoying learning cloud with a local institution as I prep to sign up for your courses. The college has us building things in Cloud9, including running Apache scripts, bash statements, and he does enjoy this very much so. But he's also using Draw.io for his topology, and he also says to architect solutions and make pitches based on business impacts. They are wondering, how should I continue as I get ready to potentially sign up for the generative AI training? I am writing scripts. I am configuring things. I have a background in usability, so I enjoy diagramming of information architecture. And then they say, also, should I think about specialization yet? I view your YouTube training and really enjoyed it, especially the networking aspects. Combining that with AI appears to be very powerful. How should I proceed? So if we want to take the first part, how should they continue with their development?
I was going to see if Jonathan could come off mute, because I think that would be a more fruitful discussion if possible.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey team, how y'all doing?
Doing great.
Good. How are you?
That's good. I'm doing well.
So
Thanks for
what do
having me.
you really want to be? Because you can be anything.
I want to be a
What do you really want to do?
cloud architect and really specialize in generative AI. I did like the networking aspects too, though.
So, let's talk cloud and let's talk generative AI. Either could be a good option for you. The real thing to understand first, because they're going to be fairly similar, is it all goes to the business. And what do I mean by that? You can create all the bash scripts you want, and there's nothing wrong with doing it. So that's why I'm asking you your goals. As many Python scripts as you want, and even learn how to use drawing tools. But if I asked you, a global retailer is struggling to increase their revenue, what are some AI options that you could do to actually enhance their sales from their current customers? That's an architectural question. Do you see how learning Bash would not teach you how to do that? And do you see how learning Draw IO would not get you there? Does that make sense there, Jonathan?
Yeah, I do.
So the drawing the picture, quite frankly, that's nothing. We can teach you that. But honestly, it's knowing what to draw. It's knowing which questions to ask and which questions to write. And that's why I asked your outcome, because if you told me that I wanted to be an engineer, I would say, great, more Bash shell scripts, get better at Linux, but it's a completely different career and it's not going to get you to your goals. So the question is, if your goal is to be a cloud architect, I've got a program and I'd love to train you. And it's going to teach you what you need to be a cloud architect, which is, and I'll happily, and then we can switch to to be a cloud architect, what are you dealing with? You're just dealing with hybrid clouds, private clouds, hybrid multi-cloud in 98% of the organization. So that means you need to know networking. And, there's things that you need to learn under networking, things like selecting of the right WAN technology based upon your performance needs, your addressing, your routing, that kind of thing. You need to understand compute, which is.
Looks like we might have lost Michael there for a moment. In the meantime, would you like to give us your opinion on this one, David?
Yeah, I think ultimately, as Michael mentioned, this is your ability to figure out where you're looking to go and your ability to have a vision of what you want to do as a company. I heard you get excited about lots of technical things and lots of different technical directions, and I think that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to pick a general track and track toward that stuff. And some of the tactical skills are going to fall by the wayside. You're not going to need them, certainly when you get into an architecture role. So this comes into some soul searching. Look at the mirror. Do you want a technical job? Do you want an engineering job? Do you want to focus on network engineering? You want to focus on software engineering, focus on security engineering, or focus on something that's a little bit more strategic to the business? And once you come up with that, then you're golden. Then you know what you need to do and you basically move forward with that plan. And we have some tools here you can use. But the thing is, whatever your path is, just make sure you're kind of living up to your own expectations. One of the things my father used to tell me is absolutely true. You can get paid $1 million a year and be underpaid. So pick something that's going to make you happy, not something that just goes after lucrative stuff or, look for job satisfaction, look for something that's going to keep you interested, something that's going to get you up in the morning, all those sorts of things. And if you do that, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah. And Jonathan, I'll give you my take as well, because I've actually moved up from through the engineering industry into the architecture. And it really is one of those things and don't take this the wrong way, but most people really don't know what they're missing out, right? They get so giddy and happy about being able to play with the latest technology, be able to configure it, figure out, and feel really good about understanding the different protocols, regardless if these are going to be networking related, application related, even data storage, right? If we think about something like fiber channel, Ethernet, they all have their own ways of actually looking at the data, forwarding the data. So this is all exciting stuff. But I can tell you from my personal experience, there's just something different about being able to work with a customer and helping them to solve a problem that might have been long-standing, and seeing the lights just go on with everybody, seeing everybody get on the same page, being able to unify somebody to solve a particular problem. And then once you go through the journey, this rapport that you built with everybody, these relationships, they become fulfilling. Now, does that mean that at all avenues there's going to be all roses, meaning it's all going to be peachy or going to be great? No, you're going to have different of opinion, right? But that's where the leadership skills come into place. And as you move towards the goal and you finally see your vision come about and actually fulfill the requirement and solve the pain points that a customer has, irregardless of what the technology may be. It could be generative AI one day, it could be cloud another day, it could be networking in general another day. But seeing that satisfaction of a customer once you get towards the finish goal and you solve that problem, I can tell you firsthand, there's nothing, absolutely nothing in engineering, nothing in operations that's going to give you that same fulfillment. Just is not. Because believe it from me, I love networking. And how do I know I love networking? I was nuts enough to do the CCIE. So I generally have spent a little bit of time with networking. But after a while, configuring BGP, seeing the policies come into place, that high wears off. That does not wear off with architecture, being able to work with a customer. So I would suggest, see if you want to chase that type of feeling, being able to actually make a difference at the foundational level, not at the upper higher level, meaning the operations. And if that's something you enjoy doing, even if you got to, work with us to get that type of feeling, pursue that. And then, of course, and I'm pretty sure David would agree with me, the financial upsides and the flexibility that you have within your career has a lot more upside compared to engineering, of course. That's just something I've seen as well. What about you, David?
No, I agree. I agree. And so ultimately, you have to kind of have a duality in how you pick your role. It has to be happy, but also live up to your career aspirations and also live up to your income aspirations. That can, and so you have to make sure you're firing on all cylinder. I agree completely with Mark. I love working with human beings. And by the way, that changed over time. I was not a human being oriented person when I first got into technology. And in fact, I run into people all the time. They'll tell me, I want to deal with the fewest number of human beings I can during a daily basis. And that's how I craft their jobs. But at the end of the day, this is about people, processes, technology, business, and the ability to kind of make a lot of the stuff work. When that stuff comes together, it's incredibly rewarding. And I think your ability to, kind of figure that out and figure out what you want to do and, take your career to the level where it's directing at what's going to make you happy is something that a lot of people are missing out on. A lot of people have taken jobs just because of salary that they're able to get, not necessarily happiness. And like I said, that's going to be a wrong move for you. You're gonna fail even if you succeed. You're going to be miserable even though you're finding you're in a fairly good career.
Yeah, and this is I want to call it a little bit insider's tip, just for everybody. As you move up in your competency, especially if you work a little bit on what we call these soft skills, right? These are these leadership skills, being able to bring people together, be able to manage them. You have team leads, right? Even within engineering. What's going to happen as you move up this ladder, you're going to deal with more people. So no matter how good of an engineer you become, don't be fooled. You're not dealing with less people as you move up. You're dealing with more people, because the skill level that you're going to have is going to be in demand and unique compared to somebody who's going to just sit there and be an administrator. So I look at it this way. If you're already going to move through this transition, at least move in a career that has more upside, both of the flexibility of the different positions you can take, but financially too. Take advantage of something like that. And I think you will see that being able to prosper in this type of way is going to be quite fulfilling. So just a little insider's tip if you've never moved through the ranks. So for example, a senior engineer will deal with more people than just an engineer, somebody who's a junior engineer. So just keep that in mind. Many people don't tell you this, but this is a fact. So it's going to be a people job. Let's move on to the next question since we got Mike back as well. This is from Ozzy. They're wondering, do you have an idea how in demand these roles are in the United Kingdom when it comes to generative AI roles?
They're about
So-
equal to the United States, best on what I can tell. The whole international thing, it used to be where Europe was 5 years behind the United States in adoption of technology, 20, 30 years ago. That's been thrown out the window.
Yeah.
All companies are internationally focused. They hire internationally. They don't really think about borders as much as they do anymore. And the demand for generative AI systems in the UK is probably exactly the same as the United States. I haven't looked at the figures, but I'd say it's plus or minus 5 or 6%. And that's because every company that exists in the UK exists in the United States. Every company in the United States exists in the UK. So there's no borders anymore when it comes to international utilization of technology. Everybody's working together as an international community, which I think is great. We're hiring internationally. People can work anywhere. We're leveraging the talent and the technology from where it exists. All those sorts of things are there, which makes you more flexible and dynamic.
And apologies for disappearing. The power went out, and apparently 99% of my things were plugged into UPSs, except for my firewall when someone did some rewiring because my wife didn't like the sloppy wires that I left. So anyway, there's huge demand, as David said, in the UK, UK, US, these companies at this point that are all requiring architects are all in so many countries. But yeah, I do remember 20, 30 years ago when parts of Europe were lagging behind in technology. My family's from Greece. We've got a place in Greece. Even now in Greece, it's modern. I can't tell the difference whether I'm in Greece or whether I'm in the US, in Miami or something like that anymore. Technology is pervasive. It's in every part of the world.
Good. We do have a question here from Amol Pandit. He is wondering, the weekly classes are 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 12 p.m. Eastern Time on the weekdays. Are there other timings available? They're wondering this because it may be difficult at times to attend. Just to make a slight clarification for you here, Amol, the classes are on Monday and on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those are the two particular focus architect classes. And then there is an additional class on Friday. This is where you have your leadership class, your soft skills class, and that starts at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Now, when it comes to is different timings available, and maybe you guys can speak to this, while we do set the timings in place Monday and Wednesday at 10 a.m., there are particular instances, I believe, that sometimes we do reschedule. I believe there was just a recent reschedule, David, right?
Yeah, we moved it up to 2 hours. That's probably one and only time to make it happen. Keep in mind, these are all recorded classes, and I'm available to you on Slack. And the reason for that is we know everybody works, and it's not going to be an optimal time for a lot of people. But listening to the recordings, and I have some of my students who listen to them, when they're on the treadmill the next day after, because they can't make the class. Those are designed to be just as valuable. Even though I'm iterating through it, I'm not making this stuff. I'm making all of the classes independent one to another. So in other words, you can watch them out of order. There's not a sequence of training that we're doing for the classes, things like that. And if you have a question, just get on Slack and ask me the question. I'll answer to you. And so I don't think you're going to lose anything by not attending the classes. It's designed that way. Obviously, it's optimal if you're able to do that. You can participate and interact with the discussion, things like that. But if you have to basically watch the classes afterwards, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and that's the key. 80% of our students that actually graduate and find great jobs actually work full time while they're going through our program. So we'll record every class. We can't do them at different times. And, everybody asks, where's the time come from? If you actually look at it, we cover North America, South America. We've got a lot of students in Europe. We've got a tremendous number of students in Africa. We've got a lot of students in India. And, we try to do the best we can for those time zones. And our training is typically very good for those time zones. Look, we still have plenty of successful people in Australia and New Zealand, over in Asia and other parts of the world. And that's why we use the model. But there's never going to be a good time for us to teach the course because we're so international. So we pick the time that most people in most of our client countries can attend.
Okay, great. Next question is from Femi Daramola. They're wondering, can I leverage any knowledge I gained from cybersecurity in the field of generative AI? So they're asking about, can we transfer knowledge from one skill set to this program?
Absolutely. I mean, security is part of what we teach. Obviously, it's not getting deep into security, but understand how security sits into an architectural framework, when to think about it, and also who to hire, including a cybersecurity expert that's going to work with your team. Obviously, the more knowledge you have around that, the better off you're going to be in understanding what they do. I mean, architects come from different backgrounds. Sometimes they're network focused, sometimes they're database focused, sometimes they're tool focused, sometimes, it doesn't matter, but they certainly carry certain disciplines that they understand versus others, and that just means that you're going to be smarter in cybersecurity aspect of it than 99% of this generative AI architects out there, and that's only going to help you.
Yeah, and I really want to echo what David said. Architects come from everywhere. They could come from nursing, plenty. They can come from tech. Here's the good news. Life is cumulative, and everything you have makes it better. When I've got people that have an application background, great. They're really great at the application architectures, which we need as an architect. You know what we also need? Network architectures. And if somebody's got a network architect background and they're now working AI, do you know what networking people are really good at? Improving performance and availability. So they add their little skill there. And now we've got somebody from security. Everything needs security. And now you can lend your expertise there. Architecture is a team sport. And it's about doing what you do and you do well, and then bringing in other people to augment your strengths and your weaknesses, and then do it the same way. There's an African proverb that kind of reminds me of architecture. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Architecture is about building a team and going far together. So any skill you have is good. It's going to help you. As long as you can take your engineering mindset or your tech mindset, take all those good lessons you've learned, and then say, okay, now I've got a new focus. Now it's not the business, not the tech, but it's still going to make me better. Unless you focus on the tech versus the business, because you've done that in the past, it will help you.
All right. Hope that answers your question, Femi. We do have a question from Aderemi Olade. They're wondering, for someone residing in Nigeria, how realistic is it to secure a job after completing the training? And they also mentioned that they do have a background in business as well as data engineering.
So I will address it after experience. I can tell you with regards to our cloud architecture and others. I have helped people get jobs in Lagos, Nigeria in the past. I've had many students from Nigeria actually go to the UK or Canada and also get jobs. I can tell you I have helped people get great jobs, specifically in South Africa, plenty of architects that we trained in South Africa. And I can tell you that of all places in the world where I can see technology investment, Nigeria with 200 plus million people and a highly educated workforce, kind of being a tech center of Nigeria, I think there's opportunity. There's also opportunity and a lot of investment going on in Cameroon as well, which isn't too far away. But having said that, it's not the kind of market right now that you see in the US and the UK. But to me, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And if you are really great at something and you show the world that you're really great at something, there's always a need for good people any part of the world. I can tell you right now, my team does not live in the US, all of them. Now, I can tell you Mark is from the Serbia, Croatia area. My family's from Greece. Alonzo actually is from America. Chris is actually from America. Chal gets here, but sometimes she's in Vietnam. She's on this call. Eddie is in Bamenda, Cameroon, who works for us. Anselm was actually in Cameroon as well. I can tell you that Tyrone is actually in South Africa right now, and Leo's in Brazil. Why is that? I hire the best people I can find, and I don't care what part of the world they're actually in. It's irrelevant to me. The world's full of good people. It is harder. I don't want to make it sound like it's not, but there is a good need for strong people. David, you worked internationally. What do you think?
It's funny, as I was thinking about that, the last 5 architecture teams that I was on, I never met the individuals, and they were all over the world. So all over Europe and Asia Pacific and things like that. And obviously we had to work that way during the pandemic and kept it going even after the pandemic. And that's because people accepted the fact that a good resource is a good resource. We can leverage them electronically, and they can participate electronically. And the ability to kind of bring together these ad hoc teams of remote workers and bring the best and brightest to the equation is absolutely going to be imperative of being successful moving forward. The deal is where you have to make people be on site, 4 or 5 days a week, is long gone. You're never going to be successful doing that. Everybody's going to spend their time on airplanes and dealing with travel stuff versus actually doing the work. So everybody's very receptive and leveraging remote talent. I mean, Mike just kind of hit the nail on the head. It's not without its own with demographic issues, and obviously there may be times where you have to travel out of the country if they have some sort of a hybrid type relationship. But you can negotiate anything coming in. But the reality is that the innovative companies have seen the value in a remote workforce and the ability to hire internationally and the ability to leverage international talent. And that's the way to go moving forward. You're going to see successful companies that will talk about their teams that existed in 10 different countries, and brought together the talent they needed to build these things. That's just the way of the future.
Okay, great answer, gentlemen. We do have a next question from Mohammed. They're wondering, for an AI architect, does knowing programming in general, or does programming specific to AI, or knowing it, is it beneficial or required?
It's not beneficial. It's not required. You're not going to do any programming as part of the job. Obviously, I came from a background as being a Lisp programmer, which is an early derivative of AI. It started back in the 80s. Started when I was 18, actually. That was helpful for me to understand the paradigm of AI, but I've never done any Lisp programming in the last 40 years. So it doesn't have any help at all in terms of what an architect job is. You're going to be, as we mentioned with the security stuff, a little bit more advanced in your thinking and understanding how programs work and how to solve problems programmatically and what code is and how to, how testing occurs and things like that. So that's going to have some tactical advantages in the architecture stuff, but it's absolutely not required. And it's absolutely, the people get that confused all the time with architecture. Development and architecture are completely different, opposite sides of the world.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Mohammed, and nice to see you back into the webinar. We have a question from a student, Serenity Smile. So they're wondering, in terms of current or future demand and potential salary, could you please compare security architects, cloud architects, enterprise architects, and generative AI architects?
Was the second one thought architects?
We had security, cloud, and enterprise. And then, of course, finally, the generative AI. So basically across the entire spectrum of what Go Cloud Careers offers. And then their final part of their statement or question was, as a current Go Cloud student enrolled in the program, which appears to be the cloud program, the enterprise architect and Gen AI program, I'm trying to figure out where to project to get a job first, as I have cybersecurity background. So they're trying to figure out where, I guess, what they try to focus their direction on getting a job.
What do you think, Mike?
And I know Serenity, so I'll start and then I'll have you answer as well. Serenity is terrific. So Serenity, what I think would be your path to least resistance would end up becoming a security architect because you've got a cybersecurity background. Although truth be told, you're highly intelligent and I think you could take any one of these roles. The question is, maybe you get a security architect role 2 or 3 months faster than you could potentially get a cloud architect role. What do you really want to do long term? Now, generally speaking, except for the AI, because of a supply and demand curve issue, the closer you are to the business and the bigger the business impact you make, and the more your leadership skills and the greater your business acumen, the more you will earn and the more you'll be seen as a leader. David, how many times have you been a CIO, CTO, or C-suite person in your life?
Half a dozen times. Oh,
okay, so
probably seven times. I'm just thinking out loud. Sorry.
7 times he's been in the C-suite. Because what is the C-suite? It's an architect position, designing something for that business. So architects go to C-suite, and the closer you are to the business, the more visibility and the more you will earn. So typically speaking, not always, you would have more opportunity in the enterprise cloud architect space than you would others. Meaning, the closer you are with your higher levels of business acumen as a cloud architect, it's a good job. It's still a $500 to $1 million a year at that executive architect level, that chief architect level, for any of these, especially on the business side. Having said that, here's supply and demand curve problems. when people were crypto mining and you wanted to buy a GPU, it was $2,000 when the retail price on it was $400. It was supply and demand curve issue. When I became a CCIE in 2000, going rate was $100 an hour for CCIEs. Doesn't sound like that much, but it's 2 to 3 times more than it was today. It's the equivalent of $250,000, $300,000 an hour for a CCIE. So if you think about that, it's between $600,000 and $900,000 a year adjusted for inflation. Why? Because when I finished the CCIE, we were building out the internet. Nobody knew what this darn thing was, and we were building out all the networks for all the big companies. So huge demand, and a lot of networking people did very well in it. Years later, when there was a lack of demand, networking people still do well, but they're not there because they were focused on the tech. Now, the people that were always focused on the business and digital transformation always did the best. So long term, I'd say you probably a business-focused architect like an enterprise architect would be best. Short term, in the next 5 years, I think the AI architect will give you a tremendous supply and demand curve advantage. And with your knowledge of security and your knowledge of cloud serenity and your knowledge of enterprise architecture, you could be the more businessy side of the AI architect side, which I think would be even better for you. That's me knowing you. But I want to turn it over to David because, again, we're both architects. We come from different backgrounds and different perspectives. So let's have David look at that to you because he's an expert.
I agree with Mike. I think the more strategic a role is, the more you're going to make. And so enterprise architect has a tendency to be higher up in the organization. It's been a job that's been around for a long time, has an eclectic array of responsibilities, normally sits in the C-suites, if not is in the C-suite. Sometimes they're interchangeable with CTOs that we have for banks and other organizations. When you're dealing with cybersecurity architect, you're thinking about something that's more tactical. It's going to pay a little less. And with cloud architect as well, it's going to be pay a little less, but a little more than cyber architect, just because of the strategic nature of cloud and how people are leveraging cloud. The AI stuff, as I mentioned earlier, is all over the place. It hasn't really stabilized as something we can call like that's what people are making right now, because we are seeing things like anomalies, like $1 million a year paid to a good AI architect, and and lower than that. I think that it's probably a little north of a cloud architect, but south of an enterprise architect now, if I were to tell you, kind of based on where I see the salaries are rising. But I think it's going to settle down that way as well. So in other words, it's going to be a strategic role that has some tactical delivery things. So you're building things, you're developing things, you're building teams, you're running teams, you're doing agile architecture, you're getting deliverables done, you're talking to boards of directors and things like that. So it's going to be extremely important to the organization, probably still a little south of what enterprise architects make, but that could change over time. And even the ability to combine the roles, I think I'm hearing discussions about that right now. And having the enterprise architect be someone who's the czar of the AI stuff, which means you have an AI architect in that role. Who knows where this whole thing is going to evolve from, but that's the way I would set them aside. They're all great roles. They all pay really well. Plus or minus 20, 25, 30% on each of those things. And just depends on where you work and what you want to do.
Okay, those were great answers, gentlemen. We do have one question due to time that we're going to pick up before we wrap it up. This question is from Tim K. They're wondering, what value do graduates of this program bring to executives and engineers within an organization?
Well, the value they bring to executives is, I'm sorry, Mike, do you want to answer?
Actually, I was going to, I'd rather you answer it first in this case, but
see if I get it right. Well, the reality is that they bring to executives is the fact they can bring strategic value to the company, which is going to, if they're invested in the company in terms of getting paid in stock, that's going to come back in personal wealth to them because you're making the company more valuable by leveraging AI to make it happen. For engineers, of course, it depends on the engineers that you're using. It provides additional career opportunities for them because instead of just software engineers or database engineers or security engineers, we now have AI engineers, which is something that engineers can pivot to. And it's really a fairly, I wouldn't say it's an easy transition, but it's a logical transition from those engineering careers. And normally AI engineers make more as far as engineers goes because there's fewer of them, the demand is high. So you end up making everybody more money, the stakeholders and the executives in the company, because you're making them more wealthy you're making the business more successful. Therefore, everybody in the company that has equity in the business is going to gain from that. And you're providing engineers with another career option that's going to be more lucrative than the ones that he may have right now.
Yeah, I echo and agree with 100% of everything David would say. I always go straight to the business, so I wanted him to actually show you both sides of it. Here's your goal. The whole point of having an architect is to hire someone that can improve someone's business performance. That's your client, that person. What does this mean? If you increase the organization's revenues with your architectures and decrease their expenditures, the company will not have to lay off people, which means you're keeping those engineers in their jobs. So you're also offering new projects that the engineers could work on, which creates more job opportunities for them as well. So there's that. But remember, we can only serve one client, and we have to focus on that client. We're not engineers. It's a different part of the organization. I love engineers. They are super important. If we didn't have them, nothing would be built. But our focus is our client. And as long as we remember who the client is, we always do a great job of servicing them. The client is the business that actually hired us to impact their business. And if we do that right, the employees of the business that most likely have stock will earn more, and they'll have much better career opportunities.
Okay,
Going to answer
fantastic.
Kevin Grant's question real quick.
I was about to ask you, gentlemen, if we could spend just a couple more minutes answering it. It's a fantastic question.
I don't know if David can, but I know I will answer it either way.
All right. I'm going to ask him, David, if you're available, please do. Mike,
Sure.
The question is, okay, thank you very much, David. The question is from Kevin Grant to say, Cloud Architect versus Gen AI Architect, which has the biggest upside, both short-term and long-term? The reason is he's asking, I feel myself shifting back and forth constantly with the program. I don't want to choose a path with my head turned wondering, what if the entire time? And then they're also saying, as for the format of the training, if we enroll today, we would all remain together through the process of training, pushing one another in a form of camaraderie, kind of like fellowship between each other.
Yeah,
So-
I think ultimately, Cloud Architect is going to have a longer tail because we're always going to need utilization of cloud. That's probably going to be diminishing over time as cloud commoditizes and becomes easier to manage, and therefore probably not as much architectural forethought has to go into it. I'm talking about a period of 10 to 15 years, but AI Architect is going to be on the kind of upswing, and therefore it's going to be kind of a moving and shaking career. But the thing is, both are awesome career goals that aren't going to go away. And we're going to need both kinds of architects. And the reality is too, is you can pivot from one career path to another. Most of the stuff you learn in terms of being a cloud architect or a Gen AI architect is completely transferable to the other architectural discipline with processes and technology solution changes, things like that. So I wouldn't focus on which one's going to be more lucrative or the other. I would just kind of focus on what gets you up in the morning, what technology you're interested in working on. And you're going to understand that there's going to be demand for both technology spaces until probably you want to run till the end of your career. So I wouldn't get worried about that and be thinking about how I'm going to transfer one and the other.
Yeah, and I agree with David. Once you understand how to design systems to optimize your clients' people, processes, and technology, it really doesn't matter which one it is. That's why I know plenty of network architects that all of a sudden are enterprise architects. Or you can have a cloud architect that becomes an AI architect, or an AI architect that used to work in the cloud or that used to work in the network and become an AI architect. It's having the skills. It's the structured way of thinking. It's the way you approach a problem. It's the way you approach the client. It's the way that you consult with that client. That's the architect piece. You know, here's how I learned architecture. I learned to practice medicine. Someone came in. I learned how to get the right information so I understood what their problem was. I had a reference of information so I could make a correct diagnosis. And then I was taught how to create a treatment plan. Same job that I was taught over here as an architect. Learn your client's needs and goals and measures of success. Make a diagnosis and make a treatment plan. Well, then architecture, it's the same thing. So I think, Kevin, you'll be great at either one. You just honestly have to pick one. And guess what? If you're a cloud architect for a year and you want to be an AI architect, you just learn about the AI systems because you already know how to be an architect, and you can switch back and forth pretty easily. I go back and forth between networking, security, and enterprise. They're my three favorite places to work. Could I do cloud architect stuff too? Sure, I do it. It's all architecture. So, I think you'll be good either way. Focus on your fundamentals, focus on becoming great, and choose something that you're gonna like. You do that, you'll be great at it.
Right. Thank you, everybody, again. I hope you found value in having this opportunity to connect with both David, Michael, and myself to ask the questions in regards to the Gen AI program, as well as the other programs that Go Cloud Career offers. As a thank you as well, we want to invite you to take advantage of the 50% discount that we have that is applicable to the Gen AI program, as well as the other programs. Our team will provide you with the link in the chat box. Aside from that, David and Michael, do you have any concluding statements?
Join me in the class. We're having a great time. Love to have you there.
There you go.
And I want to say two things. One, for those of you that did sign up, because I saw some emails that were bouncing on my computer, but I didn't read any of them. Please, when you get an email that from Go Cloud Careers that says, welcome to Go Cloud Careers, and it has instructions on it, please read it. Anybody that takes our course, we want you to have a great outcome. So please read that document, because I want you to really get value out of this and have an incredible career that you love, that takes good care of you and your family forever. For those of you that are thinking about it, all I can say is I love being an architect. It's my life's work. Spent some period of time doing healthcare in my youth, changed into architecture, and it was the best experience ever. When students take our class, they attend the class together, they work together, and they stay in the program until they're hired. There's no 16 weeks and you're done. You stay there, you push each other, you work together, you learn together, and it's just like a medical school or a karate class. We've got people of all skills, all backgrounds, all nationalities in all parts of the world, all with different special strengths and different unique traits that help each other get to their goals. I'd love to see you join our community. At our current 50% off sale, our training is less than 2 days pay for our average graduate. And I think it's a job that you will love. I've loved my last years as an architect. Love them. Anything from you, David?
No, it is a great career choice. It certainly is a lot of fun. I think a lot of people who are interested in it is absolutely the right way to go as far as career progression. I can't imagine doing anything else.
So thank you, everybody, once again. We appreciate your time that you were here. We definitely look forward to seeing you in class, being able to interact with us further, learn the career, enjoy it as much as David, Michael, and myself do. And aside from that, we wish you all a wonderful day. And thank you so much again for joining us this afternoon. Thank you all.
Take care, everyone.
Goodbye.